Well, good afternoon on a very, very blistery hot Wednesday afternoon. And today I have an honored guest who I will introduce right now. I have a few things to say before he comes on with me, but Gene Gieselmann is my guest today. Gene is not only a good friend, but he's a 29-year trainer for the St. Louis Cardinals. And when we start talking to Gene, you just can't believe the experiences he's had and the number of tremendous athletes and managers that he has worked under. And I'll bring Gene on in a moment, but I want to have a little shout out. First of all, I want everybody to look at this shirt here. And it just says it all. It's all about, I don't need Google because my wife and my daughters know everything. Is that true, Gene?
Yes, they might even know who the unknown soldier is.
They might know that. And then over here on the wall, this is a NCAA basketball sweatshirt that I got years ago when I was there. And if you look at the teams that were there and the coaches, Rick Pitino was there and the UCLA, they were in that tournament. And right here, which made it really interesting, St. Louis University was at that regional down in Atlanta, 1998. And I believe Spoonhauer, the late Charlie Spoonhauer, was a coach, and what a fantastic guy he was. Well, anyway, also I did a podcast, guys from the 1976 state champion Kansas City Center team. They wanted to interview me because it's their 50th anniversary, and they came down to St. Louis at a place called Tully's Tap Room. We had it in there. And it was so much fun. And what a great group of guys. They were undefeated state champions. And they played St. Louis Central, who was also undefeated going into that game. Two undefeated teams. And these guys have decided to honor that 50-year anniversary with a podcast with all kind of different people who were involved. So they did a whole bunch of them. Then they figured, well, maybe we better call one of the referees who was there too that night. So they called me, and what a great group of guys. A couple twins by the name of Allison Boys, and then they had the producer is a guy by the name of Dwayne Lewis who was on that team, and he produced it. And we had a good time at Tully's also. And then I want to make a shout out to my boss for many, many years, Dr. Chuck McKenna, who's he's 93 and his wife is 93, and they're the salt of the earth, and they did so much for me over the years that I was at Ladue. And right now they're 93 and they're getting up in years. And my wife and I are going to spend an afternoon with them this Friday, watch a Cardinal game at their house and just be with them. And anyway, now enough of all that stuff, and I'm going to introduce now Mr. Gene Gieselmann, the great Cardinal trainer. Gene's in the same breath as Bob Bowman. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And Stanley London?
Stan Lennon was our team physician when I joined the team in 1997. No, I'm sorry, 1968, 69.
Yes. Gene, you want to tell us a little bit about your Wichita State career and how you got hired by the Cardinals at a young age?
Yeah, Bob Bowman was in the off season, did the work for the St. Louis University basketball team. Obviously, St. Louis U and Wichita State were in the Missouri Valley. So my senior year, my job was as a student athlete trainer was when the visiting team came in, ask them what do they need, what time the doctor's going to be there, do they want, what kind of gum they want, oranges, all the above. And Doc he asked me, he said, I've watched you for the last couple of years here. You kind of like to do this. And I said, yeah, that's what I want to do. He said, have you ever thought about baseball? And I said, not really. I said, I've had some interviews with New Mexico State, Idaho University. And I said, I've never thought about it, but I don't want to ride buses the rest of my life. He says, well, why don't you, we'll fly you into St. Louis. We'll interview with Bing Devine and George Sylvie, who was the head of the minor leagues at that time, and they hired me. So I was very fortunate, but thanks to Doc for at least seeing that maybe I would want to pursue a job in baseball as an athletic trainer.
Well, you only spent, I think, 1 year in the minor leagues.
Yeah, 1968, I had to graduate from college. I drove down to St. Petersburg, Florida, was there from June, July, August, September, when the minor league season was over with. And then they brought me up as Bowman's assistant in 1969. I was his assistant in 70 and took over as head athletic trainer in 71.
Unbelievable. Look at that. And you were a young man. I mean, very young when you
Yeah,
became the
a
head
lot younger
trainer.
right now, Zach.
Well, a lot younger than both of us,
Yeah.
buddy. But you did a hell of a job. And I'll tell you, there's so many things that you did, Gene. Let's talk a little bit first about your real good friend. And I have a real issue with the Cardinal organization. I really truly believe that Dal Maxville and Gene Gieselmann belong in the Cardinal Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, that's awful nice of you to say. Um, I am lucky that with PBATS, Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society, we do have a plaque in Cooperstown with my name and 9 other athletic trainers. It would be a nice reward. I'm not pushing for it, as you know me. I think Maxie belongs just for his playing career, but also for his general manager job. And he probably deserves it more than I do as an athletic trainer because he played the game. He put the uniform on. I put an athletic trainer's uniform on and carried scissors in my back pocket.
Well, we had a podcast back when the radio station was operating, and I just thought Maxie, and thank you for bringing him on. I thought he was just awesome that day. He's sharp, and uh, as far as intellect goes, maybe you and I could add up our intellect, and we might get close to Maxie. What do you think,
Isn't
Gino?
that the truth? I went to Wichita State, and you didn't have to have a whole big IQ to get into Wichita State, but you do to have Washington University. And he had an electrical engineering degree. Yes, he's very, very astute. We've stayed real good friends. In fact, Rosanna and my wife and I are going out to his house on 4th of July. We stay in touch. We talk a lot. He's a solid, great person, and I know you went to Washington U, so
Well,
both of
I'm
you,
well.
both of you can tip WSU off.
Well, I went to Washington U night school. See, I couldn't get into the day school, but they got me into the night school because I could pitch a little bit. Okay, but what a great career. Washington U is a great school. I mean, I'll promote it every chance I get. But I will tell you one thing: Maxie is one of the very, very few. This is me now. One of the very few ex athletes, professional athletes, who spent their entire life, and when they walked away, they had a lot other things going on in their life than thinking about, oh, I was this and I. Max, he just walked away and never looked back, did he, Gino?
I want to tell you something. He's been to maybe 2 or 3 games since he was fired. Mark Lapping unfortunately made a mistake, but that's why he erases on pencils. Um, Mark wanted his own person, which is fine. There's a lot of people want their own people, but Maxie pretty well said, "Hey, I had a great run, enjoyed baseball, but." He's come to 4 games. 3 of those games were on my behalf because of the Taylor Hooten Foundation, which I'm on the board of directors along with Tom Pagnazzi, Brad Anderson, was my assistant, which we make sure people understand not to use steroids. So Maxie's showed great respect for me, at least showing up at the suite for those and visiting with people that paid money to come to the game.
Well, Gene, let's talk a little bit about when Maxie got the job and you and him had a very, very serious professional conversation about injuries and talk about that. I thought it was really interesting that Maxie had the highest ethics, and so did you.
Well, here's the deal. He called me and said, I've got good news and maybe bad news. And I said, what's the good news first? He says, I've just been hired as the general manager. He said, the bad news is we've been friends for all these years, but let's get one thing straight right before you ever step in that Busch Stadium 2. Once you come to work, it's work. It's friendship is still there, but you have to give me the full truth. I don't want surprises. I don't want you to hide injuries because a ball player said, please don't say anything. Once they say something, it's got to be told. Or, you know what's in, it's my problem. And so Maxie was so upfront, and I so appreciate that. And we're still friends many years later. And we respected each other's job. I respected his job. I stopped by his office every day when we were at St. Louis. I talked to him on the road when we had an injury. He was well aware of what the situation was because it's a domino effect. That's if we have to put somebody on the disabled list. Back then they called it DL. Now they call it the injury, whatever. I don't know. Um, Dates me. Um, it's a domino effect. He has to bring somebody up from AAA or AA or whatever to fill that position. So he did not want any surprises, and I promised him there would never be surprises. I kept him informed.
Okay, I'm going to play a little game with you now, okay? And I'm going to give you the name of a former Cardinal manager and just one word or two words. Can we do that?
Sure.
All right, let's start off with Red.
Red Dog. I mean, he was my first manager. What a great person. His family and I still talk, Colleen. Um, he was the salt of the earth. He really, really took me under his wing, kind of a Cardinal type situation, because I was a young athletic trainer and Bowman was there for me. But the baseball side of it, Red Dog taught me. And I always appreciated that. And I'll never forget that.
Amen. And how about Whitey?
The Rat. Um, as you can tell, I have nicknames for all my managers. Um, Super great guy. Stayed friends after he retired. We fished. He taught me how to snow ski. He taught me how to fish. We lived 5 minutes apart. We still, to this day, my wife and I keep in contact with Mary Lou and his son Jim, lives in our neighborhood. But the Rat was he was just down to earth, very, very intelligent manager. I've heard many people tell me that he was 3 outs or maybe 5 outs ahead of the manager in the other dugout.
Well, now I'll add one thing to that also. In his later years when Whitey wasn't driving, Gene, you brought him to the 1-2-3 Club every single Monday that he wanted to come. You were a really
Yeah.
devoted, great friend.
Well, yes, that's the least I could do for him. But anybody in the 1-2-3 Club, which is a very unique club here to the St. Louis area, he always sat to my right. And there was a reason, because he couldn't understand what people said, so I would repeat it into his ear. He was hard of hearing, but he wasn't a hard head as people think, and most people thought he was. But he was very, very. He was like a sponge. He just enjoyed people.
But just think of those two guys that I just mentioned, the Redhead and Whitey. They're both in the Hall of Fame. And now here's another guy who you worked with, Mr. Torrey.
Joe, yeah. You know, I had Joe as a player in 1971 when he came from Atlanta. And that was the year I think he was MVP. He hit 364, if my memory serves me right.
364. Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, and he couldn't run. He couldn't run a lick. He wasn't a Willie McGee.
No, sir.
Or a Vince Coleman. So his hits were legitimate. Really, really dedicated person. Still stay friends. Don't see him much, but we both have a mutual love after baseball, and that's horse racing. He owned racehorses. I owned racehorses with Tom Pagnozzi and Rob Murphy. So we do have that connection. But Joe's just, he's down to earth, a good Italian. And you know, once Italians like somebody, actually, he's the one that gave me the name Gino. He says, if you're going to hang with Italians, you're going to have an Italian name. So
speaking of horses, and we'll move on, but our good friend, our 1-2-3 Club member who is not able to come to many meetings anymore, how about Jay Randolph? You think he liked the ponies?
Oh, Jennings. Well, he loved the ponies too. I spent many an hour at Fairmount Park with, I called him Jennings. I'm still one of the few people that do. And he loved the ponies. He was very, very good at handicapping. Actually, did the on Tuesdays at the Fairmount Park. He was kind of the handicapper for Fairmount Park.
Well, listen, he also loved Mike,
Oh yeah, Moon Man.
the Moon Man.
I have nicknames for all these yard birds.
Yep.
uh, yeah, the Moon Man, and he lived up to that name. I'm surprised we put men on the moon, but he probably should have been the first one on the
Yeah,
moon.
well, he might end up there one of these days. You know him.
Yeah.
He was my teammate in American Legion baseball, and we became pretty good buddies that summer. And well, I thought I was a pretty good athlete until I played with him, and that was the end of it.
I heard um, people say that if he would have played football, he might have been a Heisman Award winner. And I don't know if that's true because I didn't know Mike back then, but I will say one thing. He was a super great guy and very dedicated to his family and to the game of baseball.
Well, let me just tell you about his football, what I know. So we're on the same Legion team, CBC and University City. We combined that summer of 1956, going into 57. And at the end of our last practice, Mike pulled out a bag of footballs because we're baseball season's about over and they're getting ready. CBC's getting ready for their 2 weeks before the season, and he took some footballs out of his bag. Now I could throw a football, I thought, pretty damn well, and he started throwing a football around with his CBC buddies. And I go to a couple of my guys from U City. I said, "Whoa, wait a minute! That guy's he's in a whole different league than us, and he really could. He could just throw. Well, you know what kind of arm he had, Gino?
Oh,
Well, that's how he threw a football too. I mean, he could throw a football 35 or 40 yards on a dart. So let me go here now. We'll go. How about Mr. Kenny Boyer?
KB. Um, I hope the people listening to this don't take this offense, but you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. And he had a terrible ball club. John Claiborne was his general manager, and Kenny told him at the winter meetings in Cleveland, don't get Bobby Bonds. Kenny came home, and what did Claiborne do? Claiborne signed Bobby Bonds. Well, Bobby Bonds he's in one of my top 10 players that I didn't care for.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't give anything to this ball club. In fact, he caused KB a lot of problems. The funny story about Kenny is people that are baseball fans realize that he got fired in between doubleheaders in Montreal. And the reason it was between doubleheaders is John Claiborne was flying up to Montreal to fire him that night, Saturday night. Well, the weather was bad in O'Hara in Chicago, and he couldn't get to Montreal, so he had to postpone it till the next day to get to Montreal. He came in between innings or between games and fired KB. The funny thing is that Saturday night, Bill Selman, who was the hockey coach at St. Louis U and I worked for in the off season, him and I and Kenny went out to dinner at an Italian restaurant. And Kenny kind of liked the red grape. So if he would have got fired on Saturday night, he probably wouldn't even known that he got fired. So
He liked the red, huh?
And I liked the Budweiser back in that time. And Bill Selman, after his tenure at St. Louis U as the hockey coach, he went to work for Anheuser-Busch in sports marketing. So we kind of like that Anheuser-Busch product.
I agree with you. I in fact, at a couple of our 1-2-3 club meetings, I saw you. You had a little Budweiser product with your food at Kim Tucci's restaurant.
I did. I quit doing that back, and that's funny you brought that up. I quit doing that after we left Tucci's. I kind of got smarter in my older age, and I do like their product, and I still do like their product. And Gussie was very, very good to me. I treated Gussie, I treated August the 3rd, I treated August the 4th. So those people are really, really good. And Billy Bush I treated him too because he played polo. And Margaret would call me, Gussie's wife would call me and say, can you treat Billy? And I said, yeah, have him at the down to the ballpark at 7 o'clock in the morning before the players get in. Frank Jackson, the chauffeur, would bring him down, and I'd treat him, and he'd get along. But great family, great people, great baseball people,
Okay,
except
now
for
this
the
is
third.
this is going to be a hard one. Vern Rapp.
Vern, he was kind of overmatched, and there's a reason that happened. Bing Devine thought that Red was too much of a player's person, which he was, because he played. Him and I mean, they knew the game, they knew what it took, and so the rumor had it that they needed to get somebody in a little bit more stricter. Well, I disagree with that. But Vern was overmatched, and the reason he's overmatched is because he spent his whole career, except for the year and a month, in the major leagues, in the minor leagues. In the minor leagues, Zetch, you're the clubhouse guy, you drive the tractor, you drive the bus, you're the athletic trainer, you're the club, you do everything. So when he came to the big leagues, he didn't understand that there were people designated to have jobs to do, such as a traveling secretary, such as an athletic trainer, such as a clubhouse guy. You no longer have to do that. Just manage the ball club. Vern just could not get that through his head. Nice guy, but overmatched.
Yeah. You mentioned a traveling secretary. Was Leo Ward?
Yes,
Was
I
he
want
your
to.
guy?
Oh, he was my first traveling secretary. Tell you a great story about Leo. I happened to be in the Army Reserves, and the Cardinals got me in that with Jerry Royce and Ted Simmons. I was very fortunate that I didn't have to go over to Nam like a lot of my buddies did. Um, but we were in Cincinnati. I remember the hotel, the Netherland Hotel, and I always get up early, and I had a flight to catch, and I'm having coffee, and Leo came down and sat with me and said, where are you going? He says, I'm going back to St. Louis. I got a reserve meeting down in Farmington, Missouri. He said, I didn't know that. He says, you never asked me to pay for one of your tickets. I said, I've always paid for my tickets to come home. He said, if we pay for Jerry Royce and we pay for Ted Simmons, we're paying for Gene Gieselmann. From that day on, he wrote a check whenever I had to come back to a reserve meeting. The Cardinals took care of it, which
Well,
I was so appreciative of.
well, hey, Gino, Leo Ward and Kenny Holtzman and Sandy Pomerantz,
Yes, Sandy's
they
good.
all lived on Dorset Avenue in University City. Think about that. On one block, three people like that, a great basketball player, a great pitcher, and
A wonderful traveling secretary.
traveling secretary,
Right.
all on the same street. And I got to be nice. Holtzman also had a younger brother, Bobby. He was okay, but Bobby could throw it a little bit. He was in the minor leagues for a while, and he always told a story about Barney Schultz. Remember Barney Schultz?
Barney Schultz, the pitching coach for us.
Well, Barney was his coach, and Barney, Bobby was not Kenny. Let's just put it that way. And Bobby will be the first guy to tell you that. And he said that Barney Schultz would come out to the mound and say, whatever you're throwing, Bobby, find another one. That one's not working.
Yeah. Well, that's, he was afraid of Gibby. And so he would always send a Red Dog out there because Gibby told him, what in the heck are you doing coming out here? You don't, you were a pitcher, but I don't
I'm
need
Gibby.
Yeah, I'm here and I'm going to finish this game. You're not going to pull me. If I'm going to lose it, I'm going to lose it myself. But I'll tell you a funny story about Leo Ward. We had a ball player, Daryl Patterson. That's back in the 70s. And Red Dog had a rule, and so did Leo. If the plane is leaving at 5 o'clock for wherever we will go, the plane leaves, the door's shut, and we leave. Well, that's back when we used to fly out of the old terminal at Lambert. Most people probably don't even know it existed, but we chartered United back then. Well, most people look out the windows when we're taxiing. So we're taxiing from the old terminal to get on the active runway. And one of the players yelled, he says, wait, Leo, Daryl Patterson's running down the runway, down the not the runway,
Well, from the gate to the
the gate to the terminal, whatever they call those things. I should know because I had my pilot's license. But Leo, back then we chartered United with 727s, and the back door, the back hind end went down. So Leo stopped and told the flight attendant to tell the pilot to stop and lower the back door. Daryl Patterson walked on that plane with his suitcase and sat down. And that's how good Leo was. He realized that this guy was a few minutes late, and he's run down the runway.
Yeah.
So Leo was a
we
good
never
guy.
know why they're late. You know what I mean? You don't know what happened on the
traffic
way.
or whatever.
So let me ask you this. One of these guys here on my list here, Jorgensen, he wasn't a manager for very long, was he?
No, he took over. I think when Torrey got let go. I'm not real sure about that. But Jorgen was a good guy. Now, he was the head of our minor leagues for a long time. Good ball player, first baseman. Excuse me.
Sure.
And good guy. I don't think he was ever made to be a major league manager for a long time, but he was a good stopgap, and he did a good job, and the players liked him because there again, he's like Red Dog, he's like Whitey. They played the game, so they put the jock on, so they knew what it was.
Well, let me ask you one thing. We're talking about Gibby. I want you to tell me, you're the trainer, when he gets hit with that line drive.
No, actually that was a year before me.
Was that the year before you?
Yeah,
but you know the whole story, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, he pitched with that broken leg.
He threw another pitch or two, didn't he?
I don't know how many, but he was as tough as nails.
So when you became the trainer, that was the year after that injury of his, right?
Right. I became his assistant, and then the head trainer in '71.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the players that you personally had to treat with really serious injuries and how they handled it. Gibby was a year before you, but tell me what kind of guy Gibby was. I mean, you saw him every day.
He was a year before me with that injury, but he was very, very determined to pitch. He didn't let injuries bother him. If you played tiddlywinks or pickup sticks with Gibby, he'd try to beat you. That's just how much of a competitor he was. I'll never forget this. In San Diego, he had what we call a trigger finger, and it was bothering him. And he says, "I need some Novocaine in my finger." I said, "Gibby, I'm not going to do that." He says, "You are going to do this. I am going to pitch, and nobody will know." I went upstairs, San Diego clubhouse, put a little Novocaine in a syringe, and injected his finger. He ended up winning that game. And luckily for me and luckily for him, there was no side effects after that. So nobody really knew why that's how competitive he was. He wasn't coming out of that game.
Well, think about this, and I think I have this right. He won, I think, 251 games in his career, and he had 253 complete games. Now, nowadays, the guy for the Cardinals, May, threw that one complete game, remember, about 2 weeks ago?
I don't know if it was a complete game, and then they had to lay him off an extra day.
Yeah, and everybody's jumping around and running around. The guy threw a complete game. I'm thinking, whoa, Gibby threw 253 in his career.
Not only him, Severs, Marichal, all those guys, they pitch. Nowadays, my opinion on that is only my opinion. They start babying these guys in the minor leagues so they don't pitch more than 5. And they think a complete game is 5 innings. There's 4 more innings to go. And a lot of people just hand the ball to the manager, don't care what the relief staff's going to do. They aren't as hungry for that win as some of those guys were in the 70s and 80s.
You know, when I was a high school pitcher, I had a coach by the name of Dick Greenblatt. And I tell people this all the time. I said, Every fourth day or so, Greenblatt gave me the baseball. It was my turn to pitch. And if I would have said to him, "Hey, Dick," that was his name, Dick Greenblatt, I said, "Hey, Coach, um, I'm good for 5 innings today." He would have said, "No, no, no. You're not good for anything today. You're going to pitch 7 innings, or don't even walk out there." And when I pitched at Washington U with Coach Utz, the same thing. They didn't give you a baseball in those days and say, "Hey, Ronnie, could you give me 4 good innings today?" Are you kidding me? And Nolan Ryan, I read a lot about him, and when he was with the Rangers I think he might have been the president at one time or whatever.
I think he did work for them.
But when he was with them, he was against all this baby in him, and he was making those kids in the minor leagues throw 7, 8, 9 innings. And guess what? It didn't work. See, they didn't want it. They wanted some guy. Nolan Ryan. I mean, what do you have? Over 5,000 strikeouts in his career.
Whatever it is, the game is not what it was when I was an athletic trainer for it, and I don't know why they think somebody can't pitch 9 innings. But the perfect example is with May. He pitched 9 innings, and then they gave him an extra day off.
Yes.
And I hate to say this because I'm as wrong as the day is long. Do people that are looking at the computers have never put a cup on? They've never been in a dugout. They look at the computer and they look at stats. Stats don't tell
Nope.
you what Whitey said or Red said or KB knew because they played the game. Those guys went to Yale, Harvard. They're smarter than the day is long, but they never put a jock on.
Amen. Who would be the best indicator of how the pitcher's doing? The catcher. When Simmons or Yachty or any of them, McCarver, when they came in the dugout, whoever the manager was at the time, hey, how's he throwing? He's
losing a little bit.
Losing a little bit, or hey, he's as good as he was in the first inning. There's your eye test.
Yep.
That's baseball. Okay.
You know what Gibby told McCarver one time when he walked off the mound? He said, "What are you doing out here?" He says, "I'm just coming out to talk to you, trying to relax you." He says, "The only thing you know about pitching is it's hard to hit."
It's hard to hit. Yeah, they had a great relationship, didn't they?
Yes, they sure did.
And Gibby.
Oh yeah, they did.
Well, listen, I want to talk about a couple things away from baseball that you've done such a wonderful job with. First of all, talk to me about the dogs and all the dogs that you're involved with.
Yeah, that was after I got fired. I've always loved dogs. Actually, I want to be a veterinarian, but I couldn't spell veterinarian, but I could spell athletic trainer. So I ended up working with 2-legged animals instead of 4-legged animals. But Rosanna and I opened up a clinic called ARF, and it was kind of a pun off of LaRussa. He didn't trademark the name, so I named it ARF. It was Animal Rehabilitation Foundation. And we treated animals. We had an underwater treadmill. We had ultrasound. We had therapists. We had a swimming pool. And it was very, very rewarding. Instead of carrying scissors in my back pocket, I carried a handkerchief because we had dogs walk in or come in on stretchers and walk out. So it was very rewarding and very refreshing to me to not have to listen to a back talk because the dog couldn't talk back. I could just listen. But Rosanna and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a treasure of part of my life.
Well, then what about the head first?
Head first was just, that was the head injuries, and that was fun. I didn't get involved with that as much as I did now with the Taylor Hooton Foundation because of the steroids. I think steroids in the game do not belong. I don't think we know the long-term effect, and it's not a level playing field. And I think you being in sports, me being in sports, not playing, you playing, I'm not playing, all you ask for is a level playing field. When somebody's on steroids, it's going to help them.
I couldn't agree with you more, Gino. And listen, we don't have a whole lot of time, but let's you and I talk just a little bit. We're both we're honored to be members of the 1-2-3 Club, which is a club of all sports people in the St. Louis area, and I believe it's the only club like it in America. And
Probably in the
Gene,
world.
and yeah, in the world. And Gene, you've been a member long before I was a member, and I think we have a membership at 67. I think that's the magic number. That's the most we can have.
Actually, we pencil whip them a little bit because the bylaws say 55, but we have a lot of people that are not living in St. Louis full time, such as Bob Costas, such as Bill Silman. He's up in Canada. Such guy people that live away, we can pencil whip the rules, so to speak. But it's a very, very Zetch. It's a unique club. We get together once a week, roundtable discussion. As you and I both know, there's some wonderful, wonderful athletes and people of sports world that been members of the 1, 2, 3. Bob Bowman was one. We brought up him. Whitey, obviously. Al Ferrari. Hannafin, you name it, we've had them. And how many people have the opportunity that be able to visit on a Monday and just kick things around about sports? And
Well,
that's what makes it
how
unique.
how about when Whitey and Rick Hummel would talk baseball? Well, you're not going to be around any two people who know baseball like those two guys.
Yeah.
Period.
And Costas, when he was there, him and Whitey,
Oh,
I mean, I walked away from that meeting and I said to Bill Silman as we were driving home, I said, somebody would pay to listen to that meeting because that was so unique to hear these people, and Rick was there too, hear those people talk about sports. And Hannafin obviously was there. Al Ferrari, what a great person he was. We have a unique situation here in St. Louis with the 1, 2, 3 club, and I'm just happy you and I happen to be members of it.
yeah. And while we're talking about the 1, 2, 3 club, and I want to make sure that I shout out to Rich Eichhorst, who lost a daughter,
Yes.
and to Rich Hantek, who lost a son. Two of our really beloved members, two great athletes, two great men, and those two men lost a child.
Yeah,
And
and my grandparents always told me, because my mother died when she was 42, I was 19, said your kids should never outlive the mom and dad. And
never.
that's the critical situation with these two gentlemen who are very, very dear and very passionate to their family.
Yes, two great family men.
Yes.
And they raised, Rich has 4 daughters, Rich Eichhorst, and him and Barb, they just raised
Yep.
those daughters beautifully, and Hantek raised his sons beautifully, and that was the second son that Rich Hantek had lost. And I've stayed in touch with Rich, and he's going to come on the show in a couple weeks, and we just have to, we should thank God every day that we're here able to do what we're doing. And I've got 5 daughters, and I've got a son. I need to go before they go. Believe you me.
I couldn't agree more. The only thing I want to try to live is not I call it throw a 7, is I want to outlive my dog too. Because
Okay.
nobody can take care of my 4-legged kid like my wife and I do.
This has been, it's just like two guys sitting in a bar having a beer, and we're just talking about a lot
I've
of
never
good
had
sports.
a beer except maybe 2 hours ago.
Well, that's okay too. Yeah, it's been so great being with you today, Gene, and I thank you. Every time I've ever asked you for a favor, you've just jumped right at it. Call me up, Zetch. Where do I go? What time should I be there? And I'm forever grateful for you as a friend.
Well, I told you this. I said, whatever Zetch asks, I'll try to do if it's possible. And I enjoy your friendship, and I enjoy the people that we have at the 1, 2, 3, from Sandy to you to who all those people were. It's been a great run, and I wouldn't have never met you if it wasn't for the 1, 2, 3 club, except if you would have refereed at Wichita State.
That's right. And I did referee some games at Wichita State, but that was after you left there. I think I started in like 70.
Yeah, it was after me.
75,
I left
76.
in 68.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I didn't run into you until 1, 2, 3, and I am super glad. Sometimes things are meant to be, and
Well,
meeting you has been a pleasure.
it's been great. And This session we will air this session early next week, and you can get it on YouTube, Spotify, and if you like it, those of you who are looking at it, give us a like and then share that with your friends, okay? And until we see you next week and talk to you next week, remember one thing: today is the youngest you will ever be.
And happy 4th of July, 250th to everybody.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Gene.
Appreciate it, Ron.